It was just ingrained in me so long where clients doing custom treehouse would ultimately try and describe their vision of what they're looking for, and they would always arrive at, I want like an Ewok village feeling.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Radical Hospitality Podcast. I'm your host, Zeke Freeman. Super excited today. We've got Dustin Feider with O2 Treehouse. This guy is doing some amazing work, very innovative, reshaping the way we think about space, connecting to nature, and doing things up in the trees. Dustin is the founder and the creative force behind O2 Treehouse, a global recognized design build studio, best known for its geometric tree houses, modular hospitality structures, and really this elevated outdoor experience. Originally gained international attention for his suspended geodesic tree houses, Dustin's work has appeared in major publications and TV shows, inspiring a real new movement around sustainability, immersive living, especially in the treehouse space. Dustin, really, one of the reasons I reached out to him, he was an inspiration to us when we did our first treehouse maybe 3 years ago now. And this was something I think we all had that childhood dream of building something cool in the trees. And Dustin's doing it in a way that's really fun, imaginative, and at a high professional level. So, Dustin, welcome to the Radical Hospitality Show.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for the amazing intro.
Did we do it there? All right.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had that before.
Well, man, yeah, you really are doing some very cool things. I think when people think about tree houses, it's probably O2 Treehouse and maybe Peter Nelson out there. But you guys have pushed it another bar. So thanks for the creativity that you're putting out there with your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've had clients tell me that I didn't choose the easiest line of work to go into.
No. I think there's an expedited level of building something up in the trees.
Yeah. Our business model should say we reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
On every project.
That's what it looks like. And so how did you get into doing tree houses? What led you down that path?
Yeah, well, towards the end of my school, I went to school for furniture design. In those days, that was 2004, 2005. That was the exciting moment when sustainability was the word, right? Mm-hmm. And just really exploring actually in more of a sculptural way through my work there, what place humans have in the natural world, what happened that ultimately divided humans from thinking that they're an animal on Earth and part of that natural world and have any sort of need or responsibility to fit within it in a cohesive and symbiotic way. And so it was that kind of focus and study. And then really just my dad moved into a new house and had some epic trees. And so we were recollecting about the treehouse that he built for my sister and I. And it was just a moment where it wasn't a lightning strike necessarily. It was oh yeah, it would be cool to design a treehouse. I just casually sketching some ideas in my book. And then after I graduated, so I came up with this idea of geodesic sphere tree. It started as just a floor with cables holding the floor up, just trying to do things in a much lighter way and really thinking about weight. And then I was trying to get rid of the cables out of the interior space. I'm oh yeah, a geodesic sphere is that already, and really is this shape that kind of has this equal distribution of loads through tension and compression and the struts, and it just fit inside of a tree, or it's the branches are kind of blooming out from a stem, and you put that in there, and then it's all the openings of that sphere kind of match to that fractal shape. So I was oh, this just makes so much sense as a suspended piece versus a bolted traditional style or more cabin looking treehouse. And that was an aha moment when I came to this geodesic sphere idea. I was already a big Buckminster Fuller fan. And then yeah, I graduated. I was shoot, I should build this. It would be so much fun, to get up there and build this. I come from a climbing history in my family. And that's how it all started. It was just so it made sense and it fit into the sustainability and the natural world study in that way, not necessarily as a solution per se, but as almost like a comment of, cool, what does a new modern lightweight treehouse look like,
Mm-hmm.
where you're really not burdening the tree. And I had a focus and intent with this design that it could, as far as design constraints, it could be something that is flat packed and shipped as a high production product to service really the ecotourism world, which was a new and growing industry back then.
So, like the geodesic dome with Bucks, did he ever get into building any of these things up and elevated? Is that something you had to re-engineer to get these spaces suspended, or is there a starting point for that?
There was no context or projects that Bucky had done specifically that was in a tree. Or I think the his machinations of like this geodesic, like definitely, of course, approach full spheres in like the mathematics and the geometry governing the family of geodesics for sure. But and shoot, probably somebody had already put a geodesic sphere into a tree or probably a dome, and like it just wasn't online. I feel like the internet was still early then, which is
Yeah.
funny to say, but but I didn't see a lot of it. I didn't see any when I did my initial search.
One of the tricky things with the tree is it doesn't have it's a moving, living structure versus working with an engineer. So they really like solidity and firmness and structures that go down to the ground. And something that's like is going to shift with the wind and grow over time is very difficult to connect to structurally. And so it takes a lot of this like creativity of like how do you like assemble and put these things together. What was that process like as you're and I continue to be like, because you're not just attaching things in one direction, but as you're working through the thought process and the design process, what does that look like to design new structures that work with living things?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I mean, there's the initial way that we went about things, and like, yeah, this should work in principle. And then, of course, there's like the fully engineered way. And in the early days, we weren't running after stamps and that kind of thing because they're in people's backyards and they weren't that big. And like, we were within our safety factors and tolerances, that kind of thing, with the rigging really in a solid way and connections to your factory. So some of the stuff you can do, back to the nap type of
More like a
calculations
piece of
to make
furniture,
sure
it
that,
sounds like coming from that
yeah,
that place. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. As you start getting into actual engineering analysis and you're considering seismic and wind load, uplift, and how of these things like can build up and spread across the structure, all the standard engineering actual principles applied to it, then it's been a really interesting journey learning from Pete Nelson what they've developed as far as like connection points and connections allowing for cyclical movement, and then trying to go from there with doing where we're doing a lot of like heavy steel frames and a lot of like plate glass or insulated glass units, all of that, and still trying to stay fully loaded into the tree has been a real challenge and long, and like a lot of pivots within the engineering cycles for a lot of these structures. But like a most recent structure where we're pretty high up in the tree, it's a very heavy structure. Every part of the connection point is moving. Every one of the trees, the structure isn't necessarily fixed to any one. Everything's on rollers. And various ideas about traditional hardware where it's self-centering with like two kind of, we call it skate ramps that kind of roll over each other, this kind of idea, or pendulum idea where it's like the beam is hanging from a pendulum. These are great ideas and allow for that kind of movement, but then they typically don't pencil out with the torque that it puts on your structural floor and that kind of structural planes, because you can't have that amount of deflection. And so everything's got to stay planar and flat. And so our engineers in particular wouldn't sign off on these types of systems. And so we've gone in other directions which are proving fruitful to be able to allow for to solve those problems that I was talking about.
Let's look at a couple of these projects, and I'd love to like dive into
Sure.
the specifics of them. I'm going to share a screen here. Yeah. So This is a new one that I haven't that I just have noticed. I haven't seen it out there very long. Uh,
Yeah.
it's really got this feels like almost like flowering petals that come up it. What's going on here? Walk us through a little bit, and what the
Yeah, nice.
is and how it gets
Uh,
engineered and works.
right. Yeah. So, yeah, the design intent from the client was that they wanted to do these dinner parties and get-togethers up in the tree, but there would also end up being a lot of families and kids running around and part of the events, and so we were trying to design something that would be fun for both, basically. And so we designed this 300 square foot upper deck platform with basically like a full kids play jungle below it. And so it's called like the belly of the whale, basically, that the big sliced structure on the side, fluted structure, has this kind of underside of the ship there with a play area and netting and that kind of thing. And then it has this, we call it the fruiting body of the mushroom, basically, this climbable structure, net structure that has multiple levels. So it's like super kinetic. There's rope bridges and connective areas throughout the whole thing that can really be explored. Multiple ways to get there through the spiral, through the net climb. And then this place where basically you can fit quite a few people and have this amazing twilight dinner party up there. And so at the time, that was the focus initially. And I said, hey, we have some fantastic other redwoods here on the property. What if we did this whole like kind of park exploratory type thing? Like we could do the spiral staircase here to achieve the elevation, and then a whole nother structure over here in this grove. And they went for it. They signed up for that, and so each part with its different intent. The geodesic sphere there is a full sphere plate glass LED system, and it's really intended to be this gathering space and kind of meditation temple like environment, fully exposed to the trees. Even the underside has the glass, and then basically this glass corridor that you go up through a trap door to get in there. It's quite spectacular. It's what is it? I think 40 feet up at floor level, and it's programmable. It has like 5 different environmental sensors that will end up participating in how the LEDs spread across it, that kind of thing. It's actually visible from the road, and it's become quite an iconic piece there. It's trailhead in that area. And then the spiral staircase initially was intended to be of the same exterior styling as the fluted structure, with kind of these vertical ribs that spiraled up around it. And at some point, it was a stark pivot. I said, this is like its own element and big enough undertaking in its own right that let's do something different here so this piece can really shine on its own, but still have some overall relationship through color and form to the rest of the installation. And so that's when we came up with this idea, inspired by the turkey tail mushroom.
Hmm.
And the various different stained redwood curved pieces have different levels of stain on them, so it really has this like ombre effect. And then we really put our heads together to like come up with some way to like shift them and spiral them. Of course, it would have been way easier to just stack those iterations like that vertically, but no, we wanted to go further. So, and then of course integrate the underside, so it's really like the buttresses are branching, fractaling support system for that. Yeah, so it's like a mastery of steelwork that all comes together into a hexagonal post system, so that we could minimize the quantity of connections into the tree. So it's basically everything's loading into this big hexagonal steel post form. We call it the clam pack, and then we can have minimal connections of that full system into higher capacity connections throughout the whole verticality of it. Yeah, and let me see. We even did a rope bridge as part of this project on a different part of the property. So this whole thing, or rope bridge that goes over like the little creek on the property. Yeah, so in the end, it's like mushroom inspired type installation, just crazy forms, the big net structure.
Yeah. I'm super curious on like the creative process in the team to put on this because you can look at it and you can see this combination of like artistry, craftsman, engineering, and maybe some guys having some mushrooms kind of all packed into one.
It's like yeah, a key part of it.
So is what does your team look like? I find like you need a little bit of all of that, like this ability to not get stuck on the engineering, but be able to push far enough and know what you can do, and also have some of that idea of craftsmanship. Like, what's the collaborative process? Is this you, Dustin, putting this all together? Is this like four people with like different skills? Like, what does that look like moving through? Are you guys doing 3D models? Are you making little tree paper mache things, or how are you coming up?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, very good question. I will give a shout out to Luke Wilson and John Brasilla, who were the lead designers on the project and incredibly instrumental, of course, in just getting this whole thing to work through all the things that you mentioned. There's countless others, of course, on the whole team that also deserve a shout out. Gia in the metal shop, and so many hands and a lot of effort and
Are
a
you
lot of
guys?
hours
Do you guys
to
have
make
a
it.
lot of this in house? Or are you collaborating with other partners, like with the metalwork and the glass work? Is that
Yeah, everything's in house. So yeah, there's of course we use our vendors for laser cut steel. We have a wholesale relationship with a company that does the glass. Then the engineering firm Boo is out of house as well. But everything else is all vertical. So metal, wood, finishing, that's all prefabricated, and then the installation crews, of course, are part of our organization. And so the process for this, yeah, usually this begins with myself and a designer and one of our salespeople. Go out on site and have that initial conversation, walk the property, start sketching. That's a really important part is that to get that initial kind of inspiration, exploration happening right there on site during that initial site visit, and to also then immediately have that conversation with the client about to as a waypoint to find out what's really inspiring them, this idea or that idea. And then that continues throughout the rest of the process. So we do a lot of sketching, a lot of, blocking and massing, trying to understand proportions right away. What is the capacity of the trees just spatially? Hopefully, we've captured some sort of inspiration that will guide the engineering principle on the initial site visit. And then we can bring that back and just think about that creative and critical thing simultaneously to arrive at a direction. And then just as that crystallizes, we start running budget numbers right away, right? To just do initial drafts on the budget, and so we can give some sort of idea to the client early on, like what direction this is heading in. I usually tell clients like, all right, the more structural steel and glass, the more expensive it's going to be. The more, of course, geometry and custom connections versus just plain vertical walls and roof plane, the more expensive it's going to be. So then, yeah, iterative process from there until we can agree with the client on a conceptual direction, and then we will really start getting into the engineering at that point to check all prior assumptions. We try to even tie in the engineers before we've locked down on an exact conceptual direction so that we can get their input on some of these major engineering principles that we're planning on, which also helps us. We suddenly don't have to have a major pivot. We've already like really captured the client's imagination and expectations around a certain design direction. Let me see. So the working model then portion is where we really get into the weeds and start developing all of the absolute connections and materials and process strategy. And then same thing, just continue to refine the budget as we understand the processes required and the quantities to achieve the form until ultimately we get to the fixed bid contract, which is how we typically work.
Mhm. Will you guys do a
And
separate fee for that design phase to get up to,
that's right.
or do you package it all? in as a design build, or
Yeah, so yeah, be told, we do end up taking a certain amount of the design scope that's remaining and like basically estimate it and put it inside of the construction
Mhm.
contract. But there is two contracts. We start with the design and engineering contract, and then that gets us as far as we need it to. But if we're able to basically at some point understand the project to the right degree, then we can, estimate whatever the tail end of the design process is left. A lot of times that's
Mhm.
the construction documentation process, or certain parts of like the refinement of the final details of the working model still need to be done. Put that, estimate that within the fixed bid of the construction contract. That allows us to essentially start on the project. Some parts of the elements of the project are already ready to go into prefab. So, especially as the projects have gotten bigger, our need to kind of scale and parallel the processes kind of in a Gantt visualization type of way. So we're doing just on time delivery of materials is the best way to do it when you have projects that are lasting more than a year, right?
When you're developing up in between these trees, like a survey is not an easy thing to do. You can kind of get the ground plane, but then you've got branches and all that kind of stuff to work. Are you doing 3D scans of all of this to get it up high? How do you start to figure out like this three-dimensional elements that you're building around to design it?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely have our LiDAR go out there and capture every ant walking down the branch that day, as much detail as we can. And even prior on initial site visit, we'll do photogrammetry so that can guide the initial blocking massing studies and scale the structure. And then we can, so we'll do the,
Photogrammetry, is that what you called it?
yeah, photogrammetry, which is photogrammetry, I guess, is so you take still photos in a circle and of detailed parts, and you put it through an engine that spits out a model, basically. But actually, I'm used to saying photogrammetry, but now it's actually LiDAR. You can do it right from your phone, right?
Hmm.
And there's programs that you can download, apps that you can download right to your phone that process it right there in front of you. So it's just quite magical. You can zoom around the model in full color of this tree environment within a couple minutes, and then add certain portions that maybe you missed in the initial scans and create several different scans that you can conglomerate together. And then that'll really kick off the design process. And then sometimes that just functions to the accuracy that's required. Other projects where there's maybe a larger tree system, it's a little bit harder to pin together the various different groups of trees with photogrammetry alone. It has its limitations. LiDAR will come in, professional LiDAR scan, and capture the whole thing.
So I'm sure budgeting is like incredibly difficult, but maybe having like points of references back to other past projects is
Yeah.
like in general, some of the things that we're looking at here, sacred forest and blackbird, pinecone. Could you give us kind of an idea of what these generally run for some of the projects that you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pine cone, we're actually designing a small, medium, and large built for hospitality versions of the pine cone. It's been
Uh,
such a popular
yeah.
piece of ours. So the small pine cone, which is about 250 square feet, including the loft, is around 500,000, basically between 475 and 550, depending.
And
And
this isn't
then
just like a cabin. If you're just listening, like you really need to go onto the YouTube and look at it. This is really like a piece of jewelry that's hanging up in the that you can.
that's funny, yeah, because I'm making more like tree furniture, right?
Uh,
It's like has very little to do with traditional stick framing. Yeah, so yeah, this one we actually own and rent out
cool.
online, and it's just been a fantastic thing for us. So this one's smaller than the new ones that we're building because this one really just fits the queen size bed in there with a bit of sitting area around the sides. But it has a 10.5 foot peak ceiling on the interior, 100 square feet. It's, what is it, 14-foot diameter at its widest point, and I think 22 feet tall. So but it's all windowed. The windows on the first and second course above the floor open up. That's what those frames are over the glass, basically, is to reinforce those areas, that pane.
Okay.
And I don't think people actually mess with the windows too much.
What do people
But
like when people come and stay here? What's that experience like? Are they usually coming and spending an afternoon up here meditating? Do they spend time up around the property? What's an experience like in something like this?
yeah, it's a whole variety of different people coming out to stay. It's really become like this bucket list item, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We've done zero advertisement on it. We were on Airbnb platform for a while. Now we're on Guesty. And I think that yeah, it's just so unique. It's so high up in the tree too. It's like 40 feet up on the uphill side and about 60 feet up on the downhill side of the structure. But we've had all things like wedding proposals and wedding nights, and it's really built for like these romantic getaways.
Yeah.
It's got the bathroom on the ground,
What
but
kind of
it's deep in the woods,
ADR
so it's
do you
what's
guys?
that?
What kind of ADR do you guys get on a on this?
It's renting for 850 a night
Yeah,
right now.
that's great.
Yeah, and I think we're at around 80% occupancy. So it is on a residential property with a kind of a community living there. So we don't rent it Monday through Wednesday night, just to give that community a bit of a break from the influx of people coming on the property constantly. It's in the back 40, like down a logging road to get there.
That's a really good ROI for $500,000 if you're getting 850 a night. You know,
Yeah.
that's a good investment. And it's funny when we started our treehouse, we designed like a 5-bed, 3-bath. We started really running the numbers of what it was going to cost to build that versus starting to look at the unique stay. And when we started looking at the unique stay, you can really do something that's much smaller and simpler but creative, and it can often get a higher ADR than a large big house. So you really have to get out of that like real estate mindset of am I building to square footage to be able to sell to am I building an experience that people are willing to come and stay and spend time at. What have you seen in the hospitality space and these unique spaces, and what's your thought about that and where things are going?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you just said there. I think that especially as the market architectural or landscape hotels and glamping, that kind of thing, continues to expand, I think they'll just become more and more in demand. And I think the market's already shifted in that direction where people are understanding that it's not necessarily all about square footage and traditional conveniences or comforts. Those are important. You can always get a higher ADR with those, hot tub, et cetera, whatever you might add to it. But if you can create something that's one of a kind in the world, it's going to become this landmark. And with how easily accessible and how swiftly cool things travel online these days, you probably shouldn't have a difficult time marketing it, getting it out there, and having influencers come. Of course, if it is something that checks all those boxes, then you're going to have a world of influencers that are knocking on your door to get that Instagrammable moment, as they say. And that's exactly what's happening with the Pinecone here.
Mhm.
And so, with what we're looking to do, of course, it's entirely in hospitality. It's entirely focused around that.
Have you seen on most of the tree houses, have they been part of like a one-on-one Airbnb, or have you guys got into doing kind of the micro resort or additions to boutique hotels? What else space have you seen these kind of unique tree houses being utilized in?
Yeah, so we have several of our tree houses that we rent, just like one offs, really. We are launching this concept called tree walkers, and I think are going at our pace basically to launch it. I think that we're there's a lot of things expanding. The company's expanding just with the custom work, so there's a lot of initiatives taking place here. just with the core business. So we're not basically a startup just focused exclusively on tree walkers. Look, I'm like making excuses why we shouldn't be further than we are right now. But
I told you before we got started here, we're 3 years into building a hotel and we're just framed. These things take time. Yeah.
yeah, totally. They do take time. Yeah, I'm like disclaimering it. But yeah, but Tree Walkers is it's a big undertaking and big vision. I think it was just ingrained in me so long where clients doing custom treehouse would describe ultimately trying to describe their vision of what they're looking for, and they would always arrive at, oh, I want like an Ewok village feeling, like with how tree houses have become more in the limelight of like architecture and that kind of thing over the years. I'm like, yeah, people really are looking for a unique experience in nature, and being up in a tree offers that with hardly having to exit your backyard, right? And so treehouse has become much of a bigger thing than just a kid's play structure, of course, the thing as we
Yeah.
know. And so I was looking at this from a business modeling standpoint, thinking, okay, what is so it's prohibitive oftentimes to build tree houses because they are so custom in nature and expensive. There's not a lot of companies that do it. And so I thought, oh, what if I just like such a juicy design problem as in the design world, like anything modular, right? It's like, ooh, like let's do something modular. But that's where we ended up, where it's like if we can come up with a pre-engineered kind of structural basis and platform system to hold the structures aloft, either stilted or suspended, then from there we can basically use that Lego set to develop a series of products. And then in this case, a glamping product, a treehouse tent, glamping tent, that uses what we have coined the Tetra Truss, which is, if you want to look it up online, it's called the Octet Truss. We just took our spin on it. But yeah, it's a modular hub and strut system. So the purpose of this is so that we can basically connect some exterior deck space that you can add square footage to and have that structurally connected to the actual deck or the structure that supports the tent. And it can change shape and wrap around trees and whatnot and be considered as one contiguous structural system, and it has great span capacities. And so if we're stilting it, great. You see all the advantages of that. If you're suspending it, same thing. And to have that reversible ability as far as the load capacity of it was important. And then, so building our set of Legos, basically, we said, let's do, if we're going through this intent, investing all this money into that engineered system, then let's form an entire brand around it, and ultimately decide on a franchise program so that we can create an idea that's expandable and spreadable, and get more people in very amazing, unique, kind of community driven experiences up in the canopies around the world, maybe one day.
Yeah, this is cool. It's first full circle back to the Buckminster Fuller. You can see that inspiration in it, and
Yeah,
plus a little Ewok.
that's
So
right. Well said.
So yeah, what does franchise model look like? Am I partnering with O2 Treehouse? Am I purchasing the actual structures? What's that? Yeah, what's that look like?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and I'll just first explain where we're at within the whole business development side of this concept. We did raise some money in 2021, and we just got done with the online equity campaign again here. So we are raising money to fund this concept. The intent right now is really to build a flagship location where we have create this vision and have it be a place where people can come and tour. And so if you are interested in creating a camp, then you can really kick the tires and experience it for yourself. We're looking for basically three partners, and to develop a tree workers camp in various different markets around the country, so we can really streamline and understand and know our operations and SOP our operations. And then from there, we'll have a more established brand, more established basically operator's manual, and then we would be opening up the franchise option capacity. So like the deals that we're doing up front now aren't coming with the traditional like royalty fees, et cetera, as part of the traditional franchise structure, but are coming with the intent to adhere to the intention of the brand as in terms of like the structures, the layout, master plan, and experiential aspects of it. There will be through lines through the brand, but without those constraints of the franchise system, basically
So
financially.
if I own a land or a campground and I've got some spaces to expand that would be perfect for this, what would that look like coming to O2? Are we purchasing and putting these things on and or are we doing profit splits? Like what's that business model for a landowner who's got an opportunity or interested in putting these things up?
Yeah, right. So right now it's quite straightforward. It's just a product provider, a client relationship. We're not investing in individual camps in any way.
Mm-hmm.
We are happy to connect investors with clients through the actually in the last campaign we ran into a lot of developers who are interested in investing into a camp, not necessarily leading one on their own. So if you have land and you're interested in doing a Tree Walkers concept, definitely get in touch with us, and then we can play Cupid here and match make locations. We are internally creating like quote unquote the corporate location with a partner here in Northern California in our own backyard in Sonoma County. So that's something that's moving right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're currently in conversation with 3 other locations across the country to do full tree walker camps. The one that's furthest along is in Georgia, about an hour outside of Atlanta, and that one's kind of been on ice for a second. But hopefully, we're going to be kicking things back off. It's like so typical giant land projects, getting through water rights with the county and the state, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But we got through zoning and they're approved for quite a few units, and it's a huge plot of land. So it's like immense potential for expansion there. We have some water running through it, a lake, old growth deciduous forest. So it's the highest point in the county. There's already an organic farm operation on there. We've been prototyping and testing these outdoor meals under the stars, which have been really super fun. Just understanding our chefs that will be part of the food program and how these events will take place for tree walkers. So I couldn't be more thrilled about the Georgia location. It's taken way longer than I ever wanted it to. But right now it's crazy. There's so many conversations taking place with tree walker camps right now. And on this side, and per our last fundraising round, we're preparing for just us upscale our manufacturing capacities. I'm trying to figure out tariffs. We had our vendor worked out in the Philippines, but now there's a 19% tariff on there. And so are we doing it domestically? All this kind of stuff.
Know that.
Uh, but yeah, I feel like it's really going to really start to take flight here soon. And we're really going to start producing more tree walker structures. And we're also pivoting our product line to take all the canopy and tensile fabric structure work that we've done and like just apply that to ground units, which is in retrospect maybe where we should have started, but we went we
Are
went hard on
these
it.
the ground
Still,
unit versions that you're talking about?
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. It's
What's the
like
benefit of
because
doing
they're high cost.
a ground
They're
unit
high.
versus a tree suspended?
What's that?
What's the benefit of doing the ground unit versus the suspended tree version?
Just cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like what ended up happening is like we're competing with glamping products, traditional
Mm-hmm.
glamping products out there, but we're in a different category really because we are a structural engineered elevated platform system. It has a glamping tent on top of it. So if you want to actually truly tree supported or like at least stilted around next to trees in a forest, like we can do that, but that you're paying for treehouse prices, right? And
Give us like an
although
idea, like what is a treehouse price, like roughly, versus doing a ground lamp price?
I mean, yeah, these days, I mean, it's hard to find a treehouse company that's insured, et cetera, for less than $1,000 per square foot.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really in the range between 2,000 or like 1,000 to like $4,000 per square foot in our price ranges. But so that said, like tree walkers with utilizing the truss system is a low cost per square foot treehouse option, right? But it's like completely off the map if you're comparing us to like a China Dome product or something like that. And so what we're doing now is pivoting the product line to taking the models that we've currently developed and then taking the canopy and structural steelwork of that support system and then just making it available for people to like put on their own engineered decks, regular standard deck building, right? So now we have a product that's comparable. You basically add our dock to any other glamping product. Okay, we're going to line item the shipping costs and the installation costs and et cetera, et cetera. And then it's just more apples to apples, and it's a heavily reduced price point on our product. We still get the benefits of basically the translucent canopy lets all the shadows of the environment into it, all the benefits of like the PVC acrylic technical fabric and the tautness and architectural look that we've created with the Tree Walker system. So
Very cool. Are any of these, have you got one of these up and running? It looks like there's at least one here. Are Is this being utilized and rented out yet anywhere?
yeah, so there are two in-suite bath units that are operating in Georgia at Loxley Forest. And so that's not our operation. Those are tents that we created for a client.
Mm-hmm.
And it's couldn't be more gorgeous, that location. It's on a pretty steep hillside, accessible by rope bridge, two of them connected via rope bridge. And it's got a creek down below. And it's like when you're on the deck portion of that structure out in front, it feels like you're 60 or more feet up in the tree. You're really looking at the canopy, looking into this kind of valley. So definitely recommend you folks taking a look at renting the structures out there. We have structures that are on the ground ready to be installed out in Georgia. So that should pick up later this year. So a limited amount right now, but hopefully more will come online soon.
Yeah. What's your thought on these, like in Colorado and colder environments? It would just be seasonal, I assume. Are you usually doing these things? Are you ever doing insulated structures where you're conditioning and you're running year round and running plumbing up? Or do you tend to kind of lean more towards the lighter structures that do better in warmer weather?
Yeah, so with tree walkers specifically in the tents, we haven't created this yet, but we're going to offer basically options that like Bush Tech offers with their tents, where you basically have like a insulated wall capacity or canopy with like it's basically a duvet, right? Or this insulated canopy that suspends down within that teepee frame and then articulates around the windows, that kind of thing. That should provide some additional R value to them. And everything that I've heard with other structures and providers, like that little bit of insulation does help out tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is the Equilibrium Home building system, which you can access through the website at o2treehouse.com. Yeah, the EQ Home is basically fully insulated, prefabricated wall system, that flat packs and ships, just like the truss of the tree walkers.
Oh, cool.
This is something that if you wanted to do hard shell units in conjunction with the tree walkers location, it still fits within the vernacular using that truss system in a modern kind of design language. And then you have, yeah, all the standard conveniences and comforts of home.
So this would
Really
be flat packed. So if I wanted to install it myself, could I just order the flat pack, or do you guys do install and materials on everything?
Yeah, we do install materials. So with the EQ Home, this is really more in like the custom realm, like hiring O2 Treehouse to do a custom structure for
Mhm.
you, where you would say, "Yeah, I would love an Equilibrium Home
As a
using that
starting
building
base
system."
for the design.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
cool.
You can see here, like there's a couple different versions that we basically use the opportunities that we've had with client custom projects to develop various different wall systems for this. And actually, we're on our fourth version of that, where it's actually become even more modern with like accordion style door systems and that kind of thing. I'm so sorry, like that version isn't up here on this page. It should be.
No, this is great. Yeah, something like this would work pretty good, I think, in our environment where it's a
Right.
little cooler.
Yeah.
Are you
But
doing bathrooms in them as well, or typically
yep,
not?
absolutely. Yeah. We have a in-suite bathroom, which is cool. We do the bathroom as a wet room, and the shower head is about 10 feet up, a big one of those giant rain shower heads. So it feels like it's just raining inside the tent,
Oh,
basically.
fun. Wait, and will your team come out and do install like nationally, or what's
Yep.
kind of your? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll come out and do national installs. We just had a crew for a project in Florida. We're going to be out in Colorado soon.
Are you going
Doing
in
several
Colorado?
all over the country. Colorado, Kremling.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, Kremling.
So I was up this last weekend. We have a really nice like half-mile stretch on the Colorado River that a client put under contract, and we were talking. That's just around the corner from Kremling. We were talking about tree houses. And at this point,
Nice.
it's gotten paused, and I'm like, oh, this would have been a perfect little solution for them. So hopefully that'll circle back. But
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah,
let me
yeah.
know when you guys are out.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's some other projects that, were being considered for that are larger developments out in Colorado that I'm pretty excited about. So let's see what happens with that. But we're developing an equilibrium home. We're doing equilibrium home model 2 units up in Oregon right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that that'll be cool. So yeah, but the tent, the Tree Walker's tent has. So we designed the upper canopy hub, which is a structural connection for the poles.
Yeah.
So you can do plug a flue basically in there, and you can do a wood burning stove or gas burning, pellet burning stove at the base of the bed, and then the inbuilt benches into the diagonal walls look to this fireplace. So you can basically have kind of this inside of the comfort of your tent. You can have this camping vibe going.
Yeah. And depending on what you're trying, who your market is. If I take a couple of guys or my boys, it's like you want to experience a little bit of that being out in the environment, almost like camping. If you're
Yeah,
doing something like a wedding venue and you want to have a bride suite or a groom suite or a place to honeymoon, a little bit nicer amenities is helpful. And so I think there's just so many different uses that you can start to apply these two, and then thinking about what your individual brand is as a hospitality company, how to utilize this. But there is something I think all of us have. We've all been kids once. That just the nature of getting up into the trees, getting up high, where you've got animals and birds, is just really opening up the door of how to create unique experiences. So this has been super fun, Dustin. Walking through, seeing all what you guys are doing. Hopefully we can get you out here to Colorado. We've got a couple of projects that are teeing up that we'll introduce you
cool.
on, and then maybe when you're out in Kremlin, we'll come. There's a get a fly rod out or something. So yeah,
Yeah, right there we go. Yeah, Red Rocks over there.
yeah, and we'll
There's
have a good
the
place for your crew to come stay at the Red Hotel in Red Rocks. So let us know.
Oh, in June. Awesome. Okay,
I probably
sounds
shouldn't
good.
say that live on.
You shouldn't. Yeah.
That's what we're aiming for. Don't start booking yet, guys. Like it's summer to fall.
Yeah,
But we're
perspective
making good
works with
progress.
deadline.
It's coming up.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
cool.
Dustin, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for like walking us through all that you're doing. If people want to get
Yeah.
connected with you, what would be the best way for people to connect up with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to our website. There's a contact form there. Otherwise, you can reach me directly, Dustin Feider, Feider at O2Treehouse.com. Definitely get in touch. And yeah, we'd love to work with you on a cool treehouse project. But yeah, thanks Zeke for the opportunity to be on the podcast. I really appreciate it,
My
and
pleasure.
love what you're doing and the success that you're having. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, keep it up. Everybody out there, keep dreaming, keep exploring, pushing the envelope. Until next episode. Thanks for being on the Radical Hospitality Podcast.